Good evening. How is everyone at home? I am ED-SKaR, and today I'm going to be having a look through the Conflikt 47 lists for Conflikt 47, specifically using the models that I actually own. If you saw the thumbnail for the video, you will see this wooden board that I'm carrying all of my models around on. It's got to be careful not to drop them all. That would be quite annoying. We'll go through what I have in my collection. We'll go through the options in the list, and we'll see maybe can I come up with a good list with what I have, but also is there any specific models or units that I might want to pick up in the future. Now, it has to be said that the Empire of Japan is not a particularly well balanced list at the moment. I have played a dozen games, and every single game I have played against the Axis or the Americans, I have been either completely tabled or very nearly tabled. I managed to get a draw in one game with my last remaining unit sitting on an objective, but oh dear, that was an absolute punishing. If we'd have gone for another turn, easily tabled, easily lost. Now, the two games that I've played against other Japanese players, that's a different story, and I've won both of those. I've also, not to brag or anything, but I've got 30 years of wargaming experience, and I do know my way around a handful of D6, so I'm a relatively average player. I'm not a competitive player, I never really have been, but I know how to kind of control a battlefield and how to play. And so when I go in playing with the Japanese and get absolutely trashed from every single game, no matter what I do, I need to reassess, start from the beginning, think it through, and see if there is a better way of doing things. Because probably I don't have the right battle plan to fit the Japanese kind of style of play. But also, as we have already agreed, and this is fairly widely known, the Japanese just aren't particularly well balanced at the moment. So, firstly, I want to have a look through the Empire of Japan list, which I've got on screen here, and I want to see, is there anything here that I have missed? And if anyone in the chat can mention, is my music at an appropriate level? Can you hear me clearly? And so on and so forth, just before I go any further. We have a few of you in here. Nice to join us. Right. Let's see. So the first few entries are probably not particularly interesting to look at, because this is the company commander in various types of armor. Now, given that you have a platoon commander in each of your platoons, except for the vehicle-led platoons, you can actually get quite a few platoon commanders, and we'll talk about that again later on, I'm sure, because there's a few ways that I've come up with to get extra platoon commanders by having an extra platoon. And so the company commander's not necessarily something that I am interested in. However, in terms of the models, there is really very little difference between a company commander and a platoon commander model. And so if I just have, for example, this guy here, which I painted on stream recently. There we go. I could quite happily use this model as a company commander or as a platoon commander. Either would work quite well. Similarly, I have my assault frame officer from the starter set as well. There is definitely good use for a company commander, though. If you are going with a single platoon or an assault platoon and a vehicle platoon, you would only get one officer usually, and so by bumping that up to have a company commander as well, that gives you two officers without needing to artificially create one by having an extra platoon. So there's value there. I just don't think it's for me. And we've got the normal version, the battle frame version, the assault frame version. Then we come to the platoon commander. I made a video quite a while ago talking about how to use an officer in bolt action and the many different ways of how to use an officer in bolt action. And I think that video applies to Konflikt 47 in very much the same way. However, because we have the different versions of officer, and because Konflikt is a slightly different game, there's actually not only all of the options that we have in bolt action, but there are actually more options, more ways of using an officer in Konflikt 47. So one of the things I will point out is the guts or luck. You can have one of these for each of your officers. Again, if you want to have that company commander to have a second one, you can have that point of guts or luck. And for each of your platoon commanders, you can have one guts or luck. And I think this is one of the most valuable things that your platoon commander can do. And for me, it really is guts all the way. There's definitely something to be said for luck though, so don't worry about kind of which one's better. It's just which one fits your style of play, and I think the guts definitely fits mine. One of the particular things about guts is that you can take an order die of a unit nearby and put it back in the dice bag so that that unit can have a second activation per turn. And that's one of the more powerful things in the game, just generally, but particularly for the Japanese, we need to squeeze that as best we can. So having a relatively cheap, so without the armor, we can have a 30-point regular guy with a pistol and give him a point of guts for 40 points, run him around and use that point of guts when we need to, and then he just becomes a model that will probably die but could sit on an objective or something, or we can find some use for it. However, I think that I really like, and I have done this a few times, and that is using the assault frame officer, because here we can have 3 models in the assault frame and we can still have the point of guts or luck, but the assault frame gives submachine gun, which is 2 attacks, gives deadly 2, which is deadly 2 is 2 attacks, and submachine gun is an extra attack, so it's a total of 3 attacks. And the combat blade that each of the models have is a +1 pen for all of those attacks. So that is a tiny little squad of 3 models with a leadership bonus, with snap to action if you want, and with a point of guts that can throw around and charge a few different types of enemies and get 9 attacks at +1 pen. And that's just about dangerous enough that it's really handy to have. I have had, in games that I've played so far, I have had officers in assault frame charge and kill Schreckwolfen, which is pretty impressive. I've also had them charge into Stahltruppen and win. I have also charged them into Totencore, and that ended badly, so maybe not. But small units, small enemy units, but even slightly higher damage value ones, can be taken out with assault frames. But there's more, because you can also have the Yorai Kumi anti-tank launcher down here, and if you've got a squad of 3, that's 15 points. If you have a single model, that's only 5 points. And that's something that I have considered with this particular model, which is absolutely huge. So this is a Puppets War Miniatures model, and I definitely didn't scale this one very well. I actually didn't think about scaling it at all. So if you look at him compared to an assault frame, I could probably have halved the scale, maybe 60%, and it would have been better off, but I've got it now. But this absolutely massive guy, I can count him as having the Yorai-Kumi, or Yori-Kumai, depending on how it's pronounced, I'm not sure, launcher. And I think that is a useful thing to consider. It's not necessarily something you always want to take, but it's something that I think I will probably be taking until it proves to not be useful. Because the Yori-Kumai launcher, you can either use it as a single shot every turn, and it counts as a Panzerfaust. So 12-inch range, one shot, and +6 penetration, I believe, which can definitely take out any of the armoured infantry. So Ursus, Schreckwaffen, that kind of thing, no problem. Can also do a decent number against most vehicles. It's not necessarily as effective versus walkers because pen values are halved. It does have shape charge, so it would be pen 3 against a walker. Not ideal. However, for 15 points for 3 models, or 5 points if you're just running a single model officer, to have that one shot to throw out every turn, potentially, that's better than the submachine gun that they would usually have. Bear in mind the basic weapon for this unit is the submachine gun. I don't think that the assault frame can have any... nope, I was wrong. They can have a light machine gun. And I believe the battle frame is the same, yeah. So the battle frame can have the light machine gun as well. Battle frame officer. I probably wouldn't, although I can see the value in it. So, light machine gun compared to the submachine gun. Let's talk through the differences. Submachine gun's 2 shots, light machine gun's 4 shots, so you're getting a lot more firepower. And you can potentially have all 3 in a squad. Yep, all 3 in both of these versions can have that. So if you wanted a no pen, loads of shots kind of unit, this is the way to do it. And you have far more range. The light machine gun's 36-inch range versus the 12 of the submachine gun. So that's going to be able to reach out and shoot much more often. Now, on the battle frame, actually kind of makes a little bit of sense. Because you're looking at 22 points a model, 33 points a model for that, plus the officer. So it'd be pushing 100 points, which is a lot for that. But if you're holding back and you're using a point of guts, you're using the leadership bonus on some shooting units, some firing units, that can be useful. However, I definitely don't think it's useful on the assault frame, because if we lose the submachine gun, we lose the assault special rule, and that means we lose the extra attack. So we go from having 9 attacks to 6. We still have a pen value, but it's only 6. Tiki, hi, how you doing? Tiki the Hut says, artillery platoon with a veteran officer with guts and combat blade and 2 friends, plus a regular medium anti-tank gun, is cheap and can fit in most lists. Never a bad take. Keep the medium anti-tank gun in cover on ambush. Yes, so that's something that I do want to have a look at later on, is that anti-tank capability for the Japanese is not particularly amazing right now. The Shiboru cannon, absolutely useless. If you get both hits in, which is highly unlikely, but if you get both hits in, you get a pen 6 attack. That's it. You get a heavy anti-tank gun shot. Or you could just take a heavy anti-tank gun shot and hit far more often. I think even in Konflikt we have artillery, anti-tank gun, medium anti-tank gun. Oh, we don't have a heavy anti-tank gun. I see. Do we have a heavy anti-tank gun in... I have it here. Let's go for an artillery platoon. I've got Easy Army open just because I knew I would end up here. Artillery, anti-aircraft guns. I love the anti-aircraft guns. Not the machine gun, the 20mm. Where's our anti-tank guns? That's it. Is that it? Is that all we get? I think that's all we get. That's a howitzer. Oh, yeah, here we go. Nope. Am I missing something, or is that it? Just the light and the medium anti-tank gun. I was sure that we had a heavy anti-tank gun. Because that's the light. Yeah, light anti-tank gun. Wow. It really is. Yeah, okay. I was actually going to champion a heavy anti-tank gun during this stream, but clearly that's not possible. I think I've talked the officers to death at this point, so we should move on to infantry. But I will just mention, I kind of mentioned it already, but the if you're going to take all the extra platoons, things like heavy weapons platoon or an artillery platoon, it's a very cheap way to get another officer, and it's a weird way to think about list building in Konflikt 47. That's kind of the opposite of how we think about things in bolt action. In that usually you would have to say, oh, I need to take another officer so that I can unlock this other platoon and get the weapons teams that I want. Whereas in Konflikt, I'm like, well, I'm going to take the weapons teams that I can probably fit and make some use of, but I'm doing that to unlock the officer. Because having another assault frame officer with 3 models with guts and the Yuri Kumai, that's great. They're pretty nice. And I think if I can squeeze in 3 officers, I'm probably not going to take the launchers on all of them, but I'm definitely taking a point of guts on all of them. I might consider... Is it worth considering a battle frame officer? Because they are... Oh wow, it's only 4 points cheaper. Yep. So it's 4 points per model cheaper to go for a battle frame. Well, that's not worth it. I'm taking the assault frame every time. I thought they were much cheaper than that. Huh. The one thing I have noticed about the officers is even though this first edition Konflikt model is a battle frame officer and has a Shiboru rifle, you can no longer take Shiboru rifles for your officers. The Brits can. They can take a Tesla rifle for their officer. And the Americans can take Tesla submachine guns, Tesla Thompsons. But apparently, we can't have a Shiboru rifle. Well, that's just unfair. Ticket Hut says, not sure if we get heavy anti-tank, even in bolt action. Seems not. Sniper with Shiboru rifle pairs well with guts from an officer. Ooh, I hadn't... So here's my Shiboru sniper, which I definitely have. And every time I use this, well, let's just say I've nicknamed this guy Itchy because he keeps rolling 1s. Just every time. The thing is, with the sniper special rule and the Shiboru special rule combined, this should be a really useful unit because you're rolling a 3 up to hit, and against infantry, you get a double hit. Both of those 2 hits have +1 from being a sniper and +1 from being Shiboru. So you're getting +2 pen. That should be great. But I never hit with it. I never hit with it. Against a vehicle, it's kind of interesting, but you lose the +1 for being a sniper because that's only against infantry. But you do double the pen anyway, so you're getting pen 2 either way. Tiki says, found keeping a mix of anti-tank and anti-personnel weapons on ambush really helps combat the American mobility. Yeah, fireflies. I've seen something come out today. I haven't had a good chance to read it, but the new Firefly platoon. It's like Americans and the Axis have got all the stuff in the release. And now both of them are getting all of the fancy stuff as well first. Like, come on. There's other factions in... Soviets don't even have the starter set yet. Anyway. Let's look at some infantry squads, because I have some of them, and I don't have all of them. Oh no, there's other HQ options. Of course, of course. Let's have a look at these. Medic. I don't think medics are very, very valuable in bolt action, and they are even less valuable in conflict. Just from a statistics point of view, you need a lot of number, like a high number of casualties going on nearby for a medic to even have it to do anything. And with such a low model count in conflict, it's just not happening. But also, medics in conflict can't affect rift units. I don't know whether they can affect advanced units like the assault frames, so I'd have to check on that. But the fact that they are less effective just as a base because there's fewer models on the board, but also they're now even more less effective because they're not using because they can't be used on rift units. They couldn't heal a ghost, for example, a ghost warrior. They probably can heal a Shiboru rifleman and the Shiboru sniper, but not the assault frame. I think that's how it works. Forward observers are an interesting one, and I think there is a bit of a similar situation between the observers and the medics. Particularly the artillery forward observer is very effective against a lot of infantry, and if there is a lot of models on the table, there's more chance for them to do a decent amount of damage, or like at least quite a few pins. However, there's fewer models on the board, and so yes, it can maybe once in a while do something useful, but otherwise it's really not going to. The thing is, if you look down here, they have pistols, rifles, or submachine guns. That's it. There's no option for assault frame, there's no option for battle frame, there's no option for Shiboru rifle, or even there's no option even just for a combat blade here. There is nothing. This is almost directly a carbon copy of the bolt action version of the observer, and so once they've used their ability, they are a 3 model bolt action unit, and that is just going to get stamped on. There are so many units in Konflikt 47 that would destroy this, just kind of wandering past and batting this without even like really struggling about it. So kind of yes, the observing ability can be useful, and yes, they can spot for mortars and artillery as well, but not for 75 points. That's just too much. And the fact that they can't take any rift tech anything, or even the armor, just means that they are not quite good enough. Tiki says the bolt action air observer is cheap, 50 points, because we have a modified aircraft table. Oh, okay. I haven't got the armies of I haven't got the armies of anyone yet. Actually, I've only got the bolt action rulebook. Almost exactly the same thing has to be said about the Air Force Observer. I do think the Air Observer is probably better than the Artillery Observer, because the Artillery Observer is going to do a bunch of pins and maybe blow up one unit. Maybe if you're lucky. It potentially, if you roll super well, then you can blow up loads of units, but that's unlikely to happen. The more likely thing to happen is you're probably not going to blow anyone up and you're just going to get a bunch of pins. The Air Observer is slightly different because you can you will do a few pins, but probably not quite as many as the Artillery Observer, but there is a very high likelihood that you will blow up one unit, because whatever plane type comes in, it's going to target one specific unit. And I assume, given that the different air table for bolt action, I think that's just going to apply to the bolt action Japanese, and we get the standard conflict table if playing Konflikt 47. I would assume that's the way. But on the other side of that, when you're using an air observer, there's a lot of flak options to shoot down or to fend off against air assaults. Particularly, every single mech with an arm-mounted machine gun has flak automatically. There's a few of those around. Not every army and not every faction has them, and not every army is going to take the options, but there is the potential to have quite a lot of it. I saw a game with an American player, and someone had an air observer against them, and they hadn't even thought about it. They hadn't even considered, it's like, oh, what weapons do I have with flak? And it's like, oh, every single arm-mounted machine gun. Oh, right, so my linebacker and my two, is it Coyotes, I think, with the medium machine gun? They just had loads of shots. They easily fended off, and they hadn't built their list to do that. It's just they brought lots of mechs, and so they had that. And so I think both of the observers are a bit swingy. There's the chance that you might bring something in, but it's just so unlikely. Kempertai is interesting. And the one good thing here is that you can have a combat blade. Only one though, but you can have a combat blade. It's as cheap as a regular officer, and you can't have the armor, you can't have an assault frame. Please, Warlord Games, give me an assault frame Kempertai. That would be lovely. Imagine turning up with oh yeah, I've just got one platoon. It's my assault platoon, and that's it. But I've got 3 officers, because you've got the Kempertai, the platoon officer, and then a company commander as well. All in assault frame. Lovely. Fantastic. So the one thing that the Kempertai does is strict discipline. So friendly units within 6 inches may re-roll failed order tests. Is that it? I feel like everyone in Konflikt is going to be veteran most of the time. And so being able to re-roll an order test occasionally, like, I can see the value in it. It's just not that much value, really. If you're going to take a mixed like conflict and bolt action type army, this is going to be a great unit to take. So we've had this discussion in our group that you can take in Konflikt 2nd edition, you can take just completely conflict units. You can have super monsters and mechs and all that kind of stuff, and not bother with anything. You can have an entire army with not a single model that would work in bolt action. Whereas in 1st edition Konflikt, you would always have a bolt action army with a few Rift Tech units. And we kind of have the idea where we'll have certain games where you can have full conflict lists, but we want to have this kind of situation where we have certain events that are specifically focused at bringing mundane bolt action units with a few Rift units as well. And for something like that, Kempertai makes a lot of sense. Because keeping your regular infantry moving, or artillery guns and things like that as well, keeping them working how they should is much more useful. And because you can take a combat blade, you have a pen value. It's not much. It's only the 2... if you give him a submachine gun, you can have 2 attacks at +1 pen for that, for the Kempertai himself. 2 assistants wouldn't get the pen. Depends on how you want to do it. There's different ways to think about that. I would love it if you could have a point of guts on a Kempertai. That would be great. But that's not really what the Kempertai is for. Speaking of mundane infantry, regular Japanese infantry squad. This is a conflict version of the regular infantry. So this is in the Konflikt 47 army list, and it has quite a few different options down here compared to the various options in bolt action. It sort of is every single possible option in bolt action can be made here. There's some exceptions, but you can make pretty much anything. And there's a few interesting things to point out, such as you can just give them a flamethrower. You do not have to take an engineer's platoon to unlock the flamethrower like you do in bolt action. See you around, Tiki. Thanks for popping by. We can have 2 light machine guns for range firepower. We can have a full squad of submachine guns, which can be pretty nasty. Remember, in Konflikt, submachine guns behave slightly differently. Instead of re-rolling your misses, you actually just get 2 attacks. So a full squad of 12, which is the maximum squad size, with all submachine guns, it would be a relatively expensive unit, but that's 24 attacks in close combat. You can give the NCO a sword, so you can have that a couple of those attacks with a pen value, but that's maybe not what I would do with the regulars. I probably wouldn't bother with submachine guns at all. I probably wouldn't bother with the light machine guns either, because regular infantry, even if we make them veteran here, we can make them veteran, they are much more vulnerable, much more squishy than conflict units, particularly things like the battle frames. And the Japanese are just a squishy army to begin with, so you need to really focus on the heavy armor where you can. And so a unit like this, 2 light mortars in a small squad, dug in some terrain, throwing out those shots, I can see the value in that. Hitting units with mortars is difficult in Konflikt because there's a lot more movement going on. But if you can get the last order die and then the first order die, you can have 2 chances at 6s and 2 chances at 5s. You're probably going to get hit out of this at some point. A light mortar has +1 pen, 1-inch blast, +1 pen, so it can hurt pretty much any infantry type. The other option is flamethrower. Now you do have to take the engineer's upgrade, which is 1 point per model. We see that down here. And then it's also 30 points for the flamethrower. So that is quite expensive compared to the other things, but that is a much more effective weapon if you can get that up close to something like Schreckwolfen or Ursus. You can really toast that type of unit quite well. Another one is the rifle grenade, which I think is very similar to a light mortar. I think it's an indirect fire 1-inch blast with a 18-inch range. I think it's relatively short range. Don't remember off the top of my head. The other way of doing things is if we were to bring the Kempertai along, we could run these as inexperienced units. We can even run them as greens down here. And that at that point, you can throw out, for 300 points, you can throw out loads of units. Absolutely loads of units with all sorts of different weapon options. And that's just numbers. And numbers is something that we're not really seeing in Konflikt 47. We're seeing very, very powerful units that can obliterate one of these little squads instantly. But can they obliterate 6 of them? Is that a game that was worth playing? I think the answer is probably no. And what I have considered to be one of the best uses for a mundane squad is to actually just take a regular minimum size squad. Don't bother too much with upgrades, maybe combat blade, maybe the light mortars, and just have them as a back line unit that's going to take objectives. Just have them sit on an objective or move up and throw them on an objective, because that's a cheaper unit on the objective than a squad of assault frames or ghosts, and that means that your more expensive units that are more powerful can actually go out and fight the enemy. So having an objective taking unit so that your expensive units can go out and fight makes a lot of sense. So the next one is the Imperial Japanese Shiboru Rifle Squad. I definitely have a squad of these. Here we go. Got my Ashigaru. And I do have a full squad of 12 of these guys. Now these have been relatively useful, but the Shiboru rifle version of them is very fragile. They are a veteran squad, so they're damage value 5. And so there's a lot of things that can kill 12 damage value 5 models. I think it was the first time I brought them out, as before they were even painted. I think I came across a Shreikanone, the Axis, one of the Axis weapons, and it just casually deleted the whole unit, which is a problem when we come to the game balance, because Shiboru cannon is nothing like that powerful. Nothing like that powerful. It's a real shame. However, the Shiboru rifle itself, I really like the Shiboru rifle. I think it is a good, solid, middle ground, average kind of backbone unit, kind of backbone weapon. It's 24-inch range, so it's kind of that middle range. It's not a shorter range like a lot of the submachine guns and assault rifles that you're seeing have much shorter range than this, so it's got proper range. It has a pen value natively, so even if you're not using the Rift ability, you still get a pen value of 1, so you can still hurt pretty much anything on the table. And if it has a pen value, it counts as a heavy weapon, as we've argued about recently. So it's even somewhat useful against vehicles. But then on top of that, if you do get to use the crush ability, which in my experience you often do, not all the time but very frequently, you're putting out an active rift die on every unit, or most units, all the ones that matter at least. You can either, against infantry, double the number of hits, so potentially up to 12, doubled to 24 pen 1 hits, or against a vehicle, you double the pen value, so that becomes a pen of 2. So all of a sudden, 12 pen 2 hits against an armoured car is really scary. All you need to do is get 1-6, and that's a penetrating hit. 1-5, and that's a superficial hit. And even against an armour 8 light tank, you can still get a 6 for a superficial hit, and you're throwing out potentially up to 12 of them. So I really like the Shiboru rifle squad. Next one is the battle frames, and I'm in two minds about these guys, because we have a lot of options. We have a lot of different things that we can do, especially things like give them all Shiboru rifles. I think that's probably the way I would go. But we could go for a slightly different approach and give them a Panzerschreck and a couple of light machine guns, which means they've got a lot of no pen attacks for things like taking down regular infantry and taking down things like Totem Core and stuff like that don't have armor 7. And then they have a Panzerschreck that can do a real number against a armored vehicle, or can completely blow up a Schreckwolfen. The alternate option here is to take the Yorikumi, which might actually be much cheaper, but it's a much shorter range as well. I think the Yorikumi is 12-inch range and the Panzerschreck is 24. But remember that the basic weapon of this squad is the submachine gun, which is odd. It's not a rifle. I would expect that the battle frame would have rifles as their standard weapon, but it's not. It is the submachine gun, which is weird. And so I think, for me, the Shibori Rifle Squad, taking my Ashigaru as a battle frame with Shibori Rifle Squad is probably how I would go about this. Because you get the extra armor, so they're now damage value 6. Veteran, damage value 6 with the armor. And with the Shibori Rifle, it means they can potentially put out a lot of shots at +1 pen. Or against light vehicles, they can potentially do some damage there. So, and it's all at 24-inch range, because the Shibori Rifle has 24-inch range. I think that's probably how I do it. Yeah, and the anti-tank launchers, the light machine guns, even the Panzerschrecks, I wouldn't bother with that because I'd save that for other units. But there are different ways to play this, and I have seen people just run basic submachine gun, no upgrades, battle frames, just in mass. Because at 22 points a model, you can have many more of them than you can of some of the more expensive units, and they're more survivable, and they are more survivable than cheaper units. So there's some benefits there as well, and just trying to charge up with loads of Armor 6 models. They can be taken out, but just a little more slowly. Oh, the assault frames. Let's talk about assault frames next. These, at the moment, the assault frame is my favourite squad. And I need to compare an assault frame squad versus the officer in assault frame that I keep talking about. Because this is 5 models for 130 points. Whereas my officer is 3 models for 139 points. So I'm losing 2 models, but I'm gaining all of the benefits that I've given that squad. And part of that is the Yuri Kumai. So they've got a missile launcher in the squad. Part of that is Point of Guts. That's 10 points for a Point of Guts. In fact, that's 25 points. So that directly explains one of the 2 models that are missing. And then the rest of the points comes from it being the lieutenant, the platoon officer. So that's 2 snaps at 6-inch range and a +1 leadership at 6-inch range. So the question here that I haven't necessarily answered, because I do want to take assault frame infantry squads as well as the assault frame officers, but the question is, do I take them as the basic 5 models, or do I take them all the way up at the squad of 10? Because the squad of 10 is massively powerful, but is also a very good target. Whereas 2 squads of 5, each one of them is less powerful, but they're not quite as big a target, and eventually when they do get targeted, they do get shot at. You'll lose 1 squad, and then the enemy has to target the 2nd squad afterwards. So, it's a good question there. Now I do have, and you have not seen this yet, well, you have seen it if you've seen the thumbnail of the video, but tomorrow I will be releasing a video about this particular squad. So these in bright red are my brand new proxy assault frame models. Where's my focus? Where is my focus? There we go. So if I grab one of my assault frames here, I can compare them. There we go. So this one is Warlord Games. It's one of the CO cast assault frames in blue, as all of my Japanese are. And this is the model that I'll be showing off tomorrow. A whole squad of 10 of them, and they're assault frames, and I've painted them red just to indicate that they are different in that way. But I've got Sashimono on the back, and they've got big old sword and submachine gun, so they're good to go. So with my original Warlord Games assault frames and that squad as well, I have 16. Plus I've got the battle frame officer from a couple years back that I painted, and that makes it 19. But then I also have the sitting down officer, the I can't remember what she is called. Onabigesha? Onabigesha. And I have this absolutely massive dude as well that I could potentially use as an assault frame with Yuri Kumai. So in terms of the numbers in my collection, the assault frame is definitely where it's at. But do I run them as 2 squads of 10? Or do I run them as 3 squads of 5 with the other models being 2 officers? Because if that was 5, then I'd have 3 and 3. Yeah, I can easily do 3 and 3 for 2 squads of officers. That might be the way to go. So the assault frame can take Shibori rifles. I don't think I would, because 6 points a model, that gets very expensive given that these are already 26 points per model. Makes them 32 points. That's a lot. It gives them much more powerful shots at range. But remember that these guys are supposed to be charging around and fighting in close combat, not shooting. But if you give them the Shibori rifle, you lose the submachine gun. And if you lose the submachine gun, you lose tough fighters, which means you don't get three attacks in close combat anymore. You only get 2. So by taking the Shibori rifle, you make them just as effective at range as the battle frame, except they're kind of not, because you'll be moving a lot more. But you are taking away their main. You're taking away from their main focus, which is close combat. So I probably wouldn't take the Shibori rifle. The Yori Kumai, I probably also wouldn't take on a squad. If it was a squad of 5, that's 25 points. That's not too bad. You can throw out 1 shot a turn, or you can drop up like D6 of them up to 5 shots. That's potentially quite useful, but I'm not going to give that to everyone, I think. And I think I'm more likely to keep the launchers for the officers, because if you give it to an officer squad, that's only 15 points rather than 25, and you can still shoot 1 shot a turn. If you need to dump them all out at once, you're only getting a maximum of 3, so slightly less effective, but it's also a random number anyway. There's different ways to do this. I also definitely wouldn't take a light machine gun. It just doesn't fit what this squad is doing. So for me, Armoured Infantry Assault Frame squad is going to be bare bones as they come, but is it a squad of 5 or is it a squad of 10? Because I can potentially run 2 squads of 10. I don't get the officer if I do that. I get 2 models to be my officers. That's it. Or do I make it 3 squads of 5 and then I can take 2 officers that way. Hello Jenny, how are you doing? Jenny says, are we going for pen or unarmored? So this is why I really like the assault frames, because the assault frames have deadly 2 and a submachine gun which gives them an extra attack, and the combat blade which gives them +1 pen. A squad of 5 of them is putting out 15 pen 1 attacks in close combat. a squad of 10 is putting out 30 plus 1 pen attacks in close combat, which is nuts. That can wipe any any conflict infantry squad. I think the only exception would be Ursus or with a Surging Rift Die, but you have a squad of 6 Style Trooping, we're winning in close combat against you. You've got Shrek Wolfen. If we get to charge, we're winning against you. If the Shrek Wolfen charge, then that's a different story, because we'll probably get wiped out before we get to attack back. At range, the submachine gun doesn't have pen at all, so if you wanted pen at range, you have to take the Shibori rifle. But that makes them less effective in close combat, which is the whole point of the assault frame. So I think I'd give the battle frame Shiboru, so we have some Shiboru on the field, because I think that is a good weapon to have. But I want the assault frames to be assault frames. I want them to charge, I want them to do the damage up close. And I think the one thing that I really want for the assault frames is trucks. Transport vehicles. I almost want to get some of the... I cannot remember what they're called. The Hokai. Armoured tracked vehicles. So it's an Armour 7 open-topped transport vehicle. I think it can take a machine gun, but I'm not actually sure. I think it comes unarmoured as standard. Hang on. I've got Easy Army open right here. Let's find it. Transport vehicle. Hokai carrier. So 60 points regular. Armour 7. 24. May add a pencil mounted machine gun for the forward arc and the rear arc, 15 points each. So we'll probably take that forward one. A Hokai. Yeah, open topped. Yeah, we don't care about that. Blah, 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 blah. Oh dear. Ah, hello. The Golem DK. Hello, Golem. 2 squads of 9 and of group. Officer group. 2 squads of 9. Well, the thing about 2 squads of 9 is I actually have painted the squad slightly differently. I mean, I still could mix them up. It doesn't necessarily flow. But if I did 2 squads of 9, that would give me 1, 2, 3. Yeah, that would give me 3 models for the officer. That's exactly right. That's a good way of doing it, actually. If we went for alternate plan, 24 models on a Hokai, 2 squads of 10 assault frame, my 1 model officer, and then 1 other model as an officer, both with a point of guts, and then we've got 2 spaces left so we can have 2 lunge mines. That's just silly. Okay, 24 models on a Hokai. Was it 75 points if we take the machine gun? What are the other options for transport? So we've got trucks. We've got the Hoha, which is basically a 250. Kurigan is a Jeep. The Soda. Transport of 6. It's still open topped. I don't know if there's a non-open top version. Pro movers are just toes, aren't they? They're not actually. Oh no, we do have. So a Roque has transport of 6, but is not open topped anymore. Oh, but it's slow. Yeah, forget that. Is that the same? I think that's just 4 4 models. Yeah. That was the Shike. Oh, we looked at the Soda already. 6 transport of 6. I don't think that's enough. Also, there's no option for a machine gun here, so it's completely unarmed. What's the amphib like? Oh, this is interesting. So it's a truck. It's an amphibious truck though. 13 model transport, soft skin, 28 points. Yeah, I'd just take a normal truck in comparison to that. So it's the Ho-Ha, which is the 250. Yeah, armor 7, 13 models, and then a bunch of options for machine guns. Front, left, right, rear. Yeah, so we just take the front one probably. That's cheaper. So that's 58 points compared to 75. Is 20 points really worth it when we can fit 24 into the Hawkeye? I think taking the Hawkeye, even if you're not using all 24, is probably a good thing. Just to have that versatility. Because you can put a regular squad or your sniper or some other unit on there if you're playing some weird mission where let's say you're not allowed to infiltrate and you want to get your lunge mines or your sniper into a good position. You can just have extra transport, drop them off on the way past. Like your mum on a school run. Yeah, off you go. I'm pretty sure I have a 3D file for a Hawkeye. I printed some Hawkeye for a friend of mine a while back, and he named them Hawkeye Key and Hawkeye Ko. So it's Hawkeye Koki because he thinks he's funny. It is kind of funny. It's the Hokey Koki. Yeah. So a bunch of assault frames on a Hawkeye. I'm liking that. And this is one of the 3 kind of tactics, kind of list builds that I've come up with. The first one is Shiboru spam. Shiboru rifles, battle frame with Shiboru rifles, and the various vehicles with Shiboru cannons. The second one is the assault frame spam, which is, I've got 20 models now. And I think they're definitely the best close combat unit we've got. I think they are probably the most powerful unit that we've got. And then the third option, which we'll come to in a bit, is regular bolt action tanks spam. Chiha, Chinu, maybe not Chinu, but Chiha and like Horo. I've got a Horo around here somewhere. There we go. Horo. Low velocity anti-tank gun means it's only +3 pen. In Konflikt, that's really useful. Being able to shoot +3 against some of the armoured infantry you have in bolt action, that's great. But that thing, that's 95 points. That's great. One thing the Japanese can do very well, it's not, the Japanese aren't the only ones that can do this, but one thing that the Japanese do particularly well is just lots of light vehicles. Jenny Brat says, don't know if it would be balanced, but if it would be cool if you could take M1 power armor with a flamethrower. If you could fit a battle frame, flamethrower on a battle frame, that would be... Actually, no, flamethrower on an assault frame, because you're getting up close anyway, that's the point, right? So neither of them have options for flamethrowers, and I think the main option for a flamethrower is in the regular squad, which doesn't have the option of armor. So you cannot combine them yet. An assault frame flamethrower team, because we've got Firefly flamethrower teams, so why not have... And we've got like armored Panzerschreck teams for both the Axis and the Japanese have that as well. So why not? Why not have a flamethrower assault frame? Actually, no, it would be a battle frame because it'd be 2 models in battle frame with a flamethrower. How much would that be? So battle frame is 23 points. No, that's Shiboru. Battle frame. Battle frame is 22 points. Why are you more expensive? Oh, because you've got the Shiboru rifle already, yeah. So 22, so 44, plus the flamethrower. So 40, 70, 74 points. 74 points for 2 models in battle frame with a flamethrower. Is that worth it? Yes or no in the chat. Everyone here in the chat, is that worth it? 74 points, 2 models in battle frame with a flamethrower, in the flamethrower slot as well. The flamethrower slot's a problem because then you would have to take an engineer's platoon. If you could take it in the anti-tank weapon slot, that would be fine. Or if Chris, hi, how you doing? Any thoughts on the new detachments? I have not had the chance to properly read through them. What I have read so far is not good. But, like I said, I haven't actually read through them. Fireflies are already one of the most powerful units in the game. And we've worked out how to counter them. And this new detachment that it's not called a detachment, that's a 40k thing, but the new kind of platoon structure that we've got means that the Fireflies can ignore the one thing that other players can do against it, which is a feels bad moment in wargaming. If something is so powerful and you've only got one way of dealing with it, and then that one way is completely eradicated, that doesn't feel good. I do not like it. I haven't played against it, so obviously it's only just been announced today, so no one's played against it, so I can't say for certain, but it just doesn't seem right. But like I said, I haven't actually read it through properly. I've only really skimmed the article, so I can't really say. So Gollum says no to the flamethrower in the armor. And Chris says, if anything, they're a little hot as the currents point sit. Yeah. Would love to see them interact with flak. I really think that fly and jump, yeah, fly for certain, but jump as well. I think they should interact with flak. If dudes are flying through the air, they would get, you would get on the AA guns. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I agree with that. Thing is, when I first read through the rulebook, I thought that the fly deploy did get affected by flak, because I just assumed it's like that's just an obvious way of doing it. But yeah, when I read through it again, it's like no, they just can appear within an inch of you, and unless you've got a unit on ambush, there is nothing you can do about it. Okay, so it's looking like our flamethrower team idea is not so popular. I think 75 points, 74 points, or whatever it was, is a lot for it. The other thing is that flamethrowers don't just get taken out by the enemy, they get taken out by running out of fuel as well. So, yeah, 75 points for something that runs out of fuel after the first shot, not great. That's me nudging my phone if you are worried about that alarm. And right, where were we? Assault frames. We're just in the assault frames. I like the assault frames. I like the battle frames with the Shiboru rifle, and I think those are the 2 units that I'm going to be using. The 2 infantry units that I'm going to be using the most. So next up is Shibito. And I've used a squad of 6 Shibito a couple of times now. And I've actually put in a lot of effort to get my Konflikt Shibito. So here I have a Stahltruppen And on the stream a couple of days ago, we painted a Daughter of the Motherland Shibito. And I now have a Firefly as well. I also have one of my Ashigaru as a Shibito. So the only thing I'm missing is a British Shibito. I need a British model to become a Shibito. And I know what I want to do, I just don't know how to get hold of it. Because what I want to do is I want to make a automata Shibito, which would be like just wires hanging out of it, and one of its arms is gone, and it's just stumbling around, and its code is broken, and it doesn't really understand what it's doing. That would be great. I have a bolt action version of one of every bolt action nation as a Shibito, because I've got Brit, American, Italian, German. Yeah, I've got everyone here. I've even got an Australian with his big hat. Chris says, however, flamethrower assault squads would have a second use as cheap dice that is now charging range after the flamethrower is expended. Yes, that's a good point. If you gave them assault frame, so the assistant would have a submachine gun and assault frame, so that's 3 attacks. The flamethrower guy would not have this flamethrower, but would still have the 2 attacks. So that's 5 attacks with +1 pen. That's a good point. So actually I like that. So the difference between an assault frame and a battle frame is 4 points? 26, 22. So yeah, 4 points. So, and it's another 8 points. So that becomes 82 points to have them in assault frame. So, okay, everyone in chat, vote again. 82 points now for 2 models in assault frame with a flamethrower. So they've got that flamethrower, but once the flamethrower is out of fuel, they've got 5 close combat attacks at +1 pen. How about that? Jenny says, it does say within 6 inches if a unit hasn't activated, you can shoot dropping in. Oh, yes, of course. So you can... a fly deploying unit can be reacted to, but only within 6 inches. I have had certain units land outside of 6 inches and then charge in. The Nachtjäger can actually do that. They drop down further than 6 inches away, and then they use their rift ability to charge you. And unless you're on ambush, there's nothing you can do. The Fireflies, you would be able to shoot at them, but I have seen certain units, particularly things like assault guns and tank destroyers, where you can't turn the turret around. You just appear behind them, and the tank can't turn around to shoot it. Chris says, Shibito... Let's go. Oh yeah, we're on Shibito. Shibito are a great pressure unit. 6 to 12 and 8 to 16 move is scary. Yeah, they are fast. In comparison to the Totem Core, which is the obvious comparison to make, they are so fragile. Going from damage 6 to damage 5 doubles the amount of casualties they take. And so they are so much more fragile, but they are fast. 6 and 12 is their standard move, and with a surging they get fast. The thing is, that means as soon as you use Rise Again, you go to an active Rift Die. So you lose that fast, and you need to get Surging Rift Die in the first place. See you later, Jenny. Probably already gone by now. Thanks for popping past. Gollum says still no for that was the assault frame flamethrower team. Yeah, I think that's just a lot of points. The either type of armor, but with a flamethrower, that's just a lot of points to spend on an armored flamethrower team. So I do now have, talking about Shibito now, I now have a full squad of 12. And I would like to run a full squad of 12 in upcoming games. Partly because I want to use all the models I painted, but partly because I want to see if a full squad is a bit more survivable. Because that's one of the things I was kind of struggling with a squad of 5, is that with damage value 5, they just disintegrate really quickly. I've had enemy units take 5 of them, take all 6 of them out in one go, and it's like, well, I'd like to roll my rise again save, but no, they're all gone, so they can't do it now. So if I had a squad of 12, sure, I might take 6 or 8 casualties, but then you can use the rise again, the dead rise again, the ability to come back. So I'm still not sold on the Shibito. I have a squad of 12, so I've got them in my collection. I can use them whenever I want, but I just don't think I'm going to use them that much. One of the things I have used them for quite successfully is a distraction unit. You throw them on one side of the board to make it look like you've spread out, but then you've focused everything else on the other side and the Shibito are out by themselves. The ghosts are actually really good at that as well. I've got some ghosts around here somewhere. Here we go. There's a pot of my ghosts that I haven't finished painting yet. I think on the Monday stream I'll finish these off. Because I've got some other things I need to get done this weekend. Speaking of ghosts, as we were, the ghosts are the next one on the list. Yes, they are. So, Shibito, yes, fast zombies, scary, good as a distraction unit, good as a pressure unit, like you say, but I just haven't been able to make much use of them. Yeah, I do want to use the squad, a full squad of 12, because I want to see if that changes things, but I just don't know for yet. I'm just not sure yet. So, Ghost Attack Squad. All sorts of stuff going on with the Ghost Attack Squad. They're the only unit that the Japanese have that's hard to kill, but they're damage value 5. They don't have the armor, so they're going to go down really quickly, but then they have a hard to kill to keep them around a little bit longer. So they're sort of in this middle ground where they're sort of survivable, but also not really. And that's odd. I'm not actually sure whether they're a survivable unit or not. I think the answer is probably no, because that hard to kill save might save 1 or 2 of them, but it's not saving the whole squad, realistically. Remind me, does hard to kill stack with a cover save? Because if they're in light cover, that becomes then a 3+ save, and that's really good. It means out in the open they can move. They move really quickly. These just natively are 618. It's only when they're exhausted. Yeah, it's only when they're exhausted that they lose fast. So they're running 18 inches through cover. Sorry, 16 inches. Or they can advance 8 inches and shoot. So when I first started using this unit, I was definitely not using them quite correctly. Because I was considering that their Bonodorei Spirit Dance ability was super aggressive. And it isn't. So what I was trying to do is at the end of a turn, I was using the Spirit Dance to jump them into a position where they can attack the enemy. Point blank range, like immediately up front, right at the rear armor of the vehicle, or right in front of an enemy infantry squad. And then at the beginning of their next turn, they'd get shot to bits. Every time. But I've realised there's actually a different way of using them that is much more effective. Rather than using the Spirit Dance to get them into trouble, you use the Spirit Dance to get them out of trouble. So put them, and maybe using the Spirit Dance twice here, but you put them in a position with cover in between them and the enemy. So that when they get their activation, you put them on an advance order, you move them into the cover so that they can now see the enemy, and they've got 24-inch range, remember. You fire the Shibori rifles, which they have, as standard Shibori rifle, and then you use the Spirit Dance to go. Because as soon as you shoot, you Spirit Dance away, and they're safe again. And you can kind of repeat that several times throughout a game, and you can get a bunch of Shibori rifle shots on an enemy kind of unit that you otherwise can't fight. So you can take out an officer, you can take out a unit on an objective, you can really press your stuff as well. And because the Shibori rifle is a pen value weapon, there's a good chance that you can get the rear armor of a vehicle, or at least the side armor, depends on the terrain and the mission. And so you might be able to take out even up to a medium tank. Minimum squad size is 5, maximum is 10, I believe. Yes. So you're looking at a maximum of 10 in a squad. So taking out a medium tank is probably a tall order, but something like a light tank or an armored car, like a Puma. I've seen quite a few German Pumas rolling around recently, but also things like, again, armored infantry, armor 7 infantry. You can find the ones that your opponent's trying to hide, move in, shoot at them, and then dance away, so that the Ghost Squad doesn't take enemy fire. And I've not been able to necessarily pull that off well, but I have been able to pull that off. Moving forwards, shooting, and then dancing away can be done, and I think that's how the Ghosts should be used. I have 6 models, so I don't have many of them. They're right here, and they're not painted yet, so that's fine. We can use unpainted models. I'm actually really liking this one. This is the special edition, was it Gunso? Phasing through a wall. Really enjoying that. Glad I could get hold of that model. I think for the cost of, what, 160 points for 5 of them? I've got 6, so what would 6 be? 109. Yeah, basically 200 points. Oh yeah, and the sword is mandatory. So 200 points. Is it worth that for 6 ghosts? Because it's not my main unit. This is going to be a secondary unit harassing the enemy, sneaking around trying to grab the specific enemy model that my opponent's trying to keep hidden away. Or jumping onto an objective. But not even jumping. You can just run onto objective. With a 16-inch run, you can get around the board really quickly, especially if you have Fieldcraft, because you can run through terrain at 16 inches. And so it's almost... I've heard some people talk about taking the Shibori rifle off of this squad, because you can give them submachine guns for -6 points. So what's that, 30 points? You'd save 30 points off of a squad of 5. It's tempting. It's tempting. Because this has the pen value, though. The Shibori rifle has the pen value. So jumping around and targeting the enemy and like picking out that unit that you want to get rid of, you need the Shibori rifle to do that. But if you're going around, nipping around and taking objectives, you don't. And so you can drop that, save 30 points. I don't think I would. I think I'm going to keep... I think I would keep Shibori rifles. And use the dance to get into position, protected by cover, and then use that 8 inches to move into the cover, fire, and then use Ghost Dance to get away. Spirit Dance to get away. I think that is the way to use one unit of Ghosts. If you're using like a full platoon of Ghosts, which I know some people are running 4 squads of Ghosts, I don't know how I'd handle that. I don't know how I'd control that. Because that's very expensive. 32 points a model. How much is a battle frame with Shibori rifle? So battle frame's 22 plus 6, so 28. So it's actually only 4 points a model more than a battle frame but the battle frame has more armor, but it's way less mobile. Genuinely, that is a tough decision to make. And I think for that reason, I might go without the ghosts. I'll bring them every now and again, but it's not a unit that I'm going to take all the time. We'll think about that. We'll come back to that, I think. The Ghost Attack Squad. Because it might just be similar to the Shibito, where I'm using them wrong. I think, or using them in a way that they're not it's not to their strengths. I think there's other ways to use Ghost Attack Squad that I maybe haven't figured out yet. If anyone has any really good kind of tactics and techniques to use the Ghost Attack Squad for, let me know, and I'll see if I can use them in my next game. I think I do want to bring them along for another game, because if I get them painted, I can bring them along and tick them off the list of having been used. Well, let's have a look through the vast array of weapons teams. Medium machine gun. I don't see the point, honestly. There's no option for a heavy machine gun for the Japanese, and so it's literally only a medium machine gun. And at this point, if I was going to take that, I'd be taking a regular squad with a pair of light machine guns, which would be more points, by quite a lot more points, but you'd have twice as many models, so you'd be more survivable, and you would have more shots as well. Yeah, I just don't think that's valuable. The mortars and the anti-tank teams, they're very useful in a heavy weapons platoon, but just not this one. So, anti-tank rifle. Now, in bolt action, the anti-tank rifle has 2 shots, right? Because that's a semi-auto anti-tank rifle now. Is it the Type 100 anti-tank rifle? I think so. So that's 2 shots, pen 2, without, there's no HE, so it's not an autocannon. It's actually it's essentially the same as shooting an autocannon with armor piercing shot. But yeah, but you don't have the option of firing HE at all. So yeah, 25 points for a single shot at +2 pen. Yes, that's good. It's cheap. It's really cheap, and you can take quite a few of them. But for every anti-tank rifle that you take, you're not taking a lunge mine. And I think the lunge mine is almost a mandatory unit. We'll come to this when I talk about anti-tank. Shibori cannon, no good against vehicles. We mentioned anti-tank guns earlier in this stream. The best we can take is a medium. I thought we had a heavy anti-tank gun somewhere, but apparently no, we just have a medium. It's Me Rev says, might catch him sleeping. Yeah, absolutely. That was probably to do with the ghosts, I think. So while I would like to take anti-tank rifles, I think every anti-tank slot that I have, I'm going to be putting into a lunge mine. Maybe not all of them. I think you can definitely fit an anti-tank rifle in there somewhere. But a lunge mine... Lunge mines are great, especially against walkers. I think lunge mine is the best way to blow a walker up, as Japanese right now. Because it's a automatic hit. If you can charge it, if you can get to it and charge it, it has the option of shooting you on the way in with a reaction fire, but it can't stomp on you before you blow up. Or maybe it can stomp on you, but you're still going to blow up. You always get that hit, and it's an automatic hit, and it's an automatic strength 8 hit. 8 plus D6, which means a medium tank always takes some amount of damage. And a medium walker always takes some amount of damage. A heavy walker only doesn't take damage on a roll of a 1. and any other type of walker is going down, is pretty much guaranteed to take a proper full penetration hit, maybe even a double penetration. In some cases, you're rolling a 2+ for a double penetration with a lunge mine. It's Me Rev says, saw the AT dogs got nerfed. How are the lunge mines? Oh man, the poor dogs. Yeah. So the difference between the Soviet anti-tank dog and the Japanese lunge mine is the Soviet... It's Me Rev says, YouTube is being weird. I said, teleport to a hiding PC with guts and then go again. Ooh. That's an interesting... I'll come back to that. Let me talk about dogs and lunge mines. Soviet attack dogs, the mine dogs, and the Japanese lunge mine, they're sort of quite different. The Soviet dogs need a fire order, and they have an 18-inch range, and you can have multiple in a squad. You can have up to 4 of them in a squad. So you have 4 chances to attack a tank all at once, and you can roll all 4 of those at once. Whereas the lunge mine, you charge 12 inches, so you've got 12-inch range, and you automatically hit with strength, with a penetration 8 hit. The attack dogs, you need to roll to hit, and that's a 5+ hit, not a 4+, not a 3+, 5+ hit. So you're out of your 4 attacks, maximum 4 attacks, you'll be lucky to get 2. You're probably going to get 1. You might not even get 1, but you're probably going to get 1, and that's now a pen 3. 3. And you don't even hit on like the under armor or anything like that where you would get a bonus. Pen 3 just hurts too much. The Soviet anti-tank dogs have become not useless, but much less effective than they should be. Whereas the lunge mine is pretty much exactly as effective as it should be, because that's a single automatic hit at pen 8. That's great. Love that. It's not a guaranteed kill on any vehicle. Certainly not. You can always roll really badly on your damage table roll, but there's a good chance of doing a lot of damage. So yeah, the anti-tank rifle, I like it. It's good. It's useful. You're probably going to end up taking them because they are so cheap. But for every slot that you can take an anti-tank rifle, you can take a lunge mine, and the lunge mine is just a better option. And because the lunge mine is the is the best option against a vehicle, the anti-tank rifle isn't. The anti-tank rifle is better against infantry. It's Me Rev says, took them without checking, pretty sure they used to be better. Yeah, so the anti-tank dogs used to be +5. +5 or +6. But yeah, +3 now is just awful. It's a real shame. Oh yeah, there was a tactic that you just mentioned there. So, going back to the ghosts. If you start a turn with the ghosts behind a bit of cover, you move forwards into the, so they're behind cover so they can't be seen, they can't be targeted. When they have their move, they have an advanced move into the cover, which means they can see the enemy now and they can shoot. They immediately use the Spirit Dance to move away to safety, and an officer can then, in your next order die, guts the ghosts back into the bag, and then the next order die after that, or even wait until the last order die in the turn, you can then use the Ghost Attack Squad, use a Rift Die to move them again with the Spirit Dance back into position behind that piece of cover so that you can do the whole thing again. I like that. That's interesting. You need a certain layout of table, you need a certain way that your opponent has deployed, so it's not always going to be useful, but that is a very interesting way of doing things. And that actually also is going back to the inexperienced, super cheap officer. One model officer, 21 points, inexperienced, with a point of guts is 10 points. So you just hide that 31 points away somewhere on the table that your opponent can't get to, and you can just go. You can spirit dance over there, use the point of guts, and then go back to work. I like it. I like it. So we talked about the anti-tank rifle. Let's talk about the battle frame anti-tank team. So if we were talking about earlier about the battle frame flamethrower team being not worth it for 70 points or 80 points with a flamethrower, is it worth it for a battle frame with a Panzerschreck, which is 24 inches and 6 pen with shape charge, so it's useless against walkers? Is that worth it for 118 points? I think for 118 points, that is abysmal. A lot of Panzerschreck teams are usually 60 points, 50, 60 points for bolt action ones. So taking them as veteran makes them 70 probably, and then giving them the armor. Well, the armor should only be 5 points a model, right? So we should be looking at... Yeah, we should be looking at 80 points for these guys. We shouldn't be looking at 118. So I don't know why these are so expensive. But I just don't see this as being anything like worth it for 118 points to have two models with a Panzerschreck. Even with the armor, even with veteran, there's only two models there, so they're not that survivable. If they get hit by anything with a pen value, they're gone. Yeah, I just don't see the value here. It's a real shame because the Panzerschreck should be the solid main anti-tank weapon for the battle frame anti-tank team. For the Japanese army, this should be our main anti-tank weapon. The Golem says would not take it for that price. Yeah, exactly. It should be our best weapon for an infantry anti-tank option, but it's twice the price it should be. If this was 60 points, if this was 70 points, I'd probably consider one. Just one. I wouldn't take more than one. But at 70 points, I probably would consider taking one. But at 118, I just don't see it. I just don't see it. And to add insult to this, you can give the loader a light machine gun. Why? 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 Now, they're in power armor, which means they don't need a loader specifically, right? They can shoot team weapons without a loader, which means the light machine gun and the Panzerschreck can shoot, and because the Panzerschreck has pen and the light machine gun doesn't, they can shoot at different targets. So yes, that's now a little fire support team, but that's also another 11 points, making it, what, 130? No. I see value in the squad. I see value in the Panzerschreck. I see value in giving it a light machine gun, but not for 118 points and not for another 11 points. If it was 70 points and then plus 5 points, I'd be all over it. But not for 118 and not for plus 11. I think the lunge mine is just the way to go. 1 lunge mine, 2 lunge mine, and then 2 lunge mine and anti-tank rifle. That's the order I would take it. 2 lunge mines and the anti-tank rifle would be third. This wouldn't be an option at all. Ooh, this is a nice one. This is a nice one. The sniper team. Oh, It's Me Rev says, it's so rough not being able to slip fire with 2 weapons of different pen. Oh, split fire, yeah. Yeah, so split fire has to be all of the no pen shots are at one target and all of the pen shots are at another target. And the intention of that is that you have rifles shooting at a normal target and you have your like Panzerschreck or your flamethrower shooting at another target, right? That's the intention. But in Konflikt, it sort of means that there's a lot of units that have different pen values in the squad, and without a 0 pen weapon in the squad. So yeah, I think someone suggested taking the Fireflies with BARs for that exact reason, because it's like -2 points to take a BAR, and the BAR is the only weapon they can take that doesn't have a pen value. So now you can shoot the BARs at a different target. If you want to do that, is it worth it? I mean, if you're having a squad of 12, you can cut a few points off, and it's not like you're losing that much firepower with what? You've still got 10 Tesla Thompsons in there. Right, so snipers in Konflikt 47 are interesting. And between the 5 factions, the British, Soviets, and the Axis can take heavy snipers, which is essentially an anti-tank rifle with a scope on it. The Americans can't. The Americans can only take a normal sniper. There's no option. There's no bonus that they can take, I think. The Japanese, however, get something interesting and different. And I have a specific model already made up, and I have used this guy several times already. So this is my Ashigaru sniper. Essentially exactly the same as all of my other Ashigaru, with the oversized Tanegeshima musket to be used as a Shiboru rifle. I did print this one with a scope, but the scope failed to print for some reason. But it doesn't really matter. So, for 10 points, you can give the sniper a Shiboru rifle. So it's now got both the Shiboru special rule and the sniper special rule. So you combine both. Mankowitz. Hi, how you doing? Thanks for joining us. I really like this on paper. In practice, I just can't roll above a 1. I have nicknamed this model Ichi because Ichi is a nickname in Japan. It is also, Ich is the Japanese word for 1. And that is what I always roll when rolling my sniper shot. I always roll a 1. So, in theory, this should be really good. Because against infantry, it's a sniper, it gets +1 pen. It's a Shiboru rifle, so it also gets another +1 pen. So just using it normally, it gets +2 pen. So it's a sniper rifle, it also gets +1 to hit. So you're rolling 3+ to hit with a +2 pen. So Stahltrooper are going down on 5s. That's great. Regular infantry are going down on 2s. Great. But then you use the Rift ability and you double those hits against an infantry squad. So actually, that is now 2 hits. So if you roll a 3+ and use a Rift die, that is now 2 hits with +2 pen each. That's great. Against Stahltrooper or any Armor 7 infantry, they're now going down on 5s, and you've got 2 chances to take one out, and it's 60 points for that, which is great. I have taken it in every game. I have absolutely rolled 1s in every single game, and I will continue using it in every game, just blindly smashing my head repeatedly against this brick wall that is being just completely incapable of rolling above a 1 to hit for a sniper. So I don't see I don't see the relevance of these options here. You can give the assistant a rifle, but you're never going to shoot it really. If you're moving with the team, you shoot the Shiboru rifle as a standard +1 pen shot, and then you can shoot a normal rifle shot as well. So what? Does it matter? technically you can split fire. Does it matter? No. Submachine gun for 5 points. Like, what are they going to do with a submachine gun? Defend themselves in close combat? There's 2 models. They're going down no matter what. I think, honestly, I wouldn't even take them as veteran. I'm just going to accept that as soon as they get shot at, they're going down. So I'm going to give them a regular. I'm going to give them the Shibora rifle, and that's it. 62 points. And just accept that as soon as someone targets them, they're gone. Because snipers tend to do that. Now, they do get Infiltrator. So they do get a cover save against things that don't ignore cover saves. I like it. On paper, it's great. In practice, I can't roll above a 1. So, mortars. Mortars, then. Japanese have more options for mortars than anyone else. So we have... Everyone has 2 light mortars in the assault platoon. We also have our infantry squads can take light mortars. So if you're going to take a mundane infantry squad and drop them on an objective, you can put mortars in them. That makes a lot of sense to do. However, the other option for a mortar is in a heavy weapons platoon. Because the machine gun slot is so useless, with only getting a medium machine gun, if you take both of the basic units as light mortars, you then have 3 anti-tank weapons. So you can take a heavy weapons platoon with an assault frame officer, 2 light mortars, and 3 lunge mines. That's good. It doesn't necessarily have to be 3 lunge mines. It can be a lunge mine and an anti-tank rifle, because we've already agreed that having an anti-tank rifle around is a useful thing to have. But when it comes to the medium and heavy mortar, medium and heavy mortars in bolt action are really good to get your opponent shifted out of a position that you want them shifted from. If they're in cover, you can just keep dropping mortars on them and they will have to move because you will eventually get to 2+ hit. In Konflikt 47, no one's sitting around. All of the big angry units that are coming to get you, they're not sitting in cover, they're coming to get you, right? So shooting these big mortars at enemy squads that are charging across the battlefield doesn't make much sense. You can potentially get a last die first die situation. You might roll a 6, you might roll a 5, but I just don't think it's that valuable. However, the light mortar, I do. 21 points for an inexperienced light mortar. They have 1-inch blast, which means it's a pen value of 1, which means you can hurt any infantry unit. If you hit against a vehicle, you're hitting on the top armor, remember? So that's another +1. So you can hurt up to an armor 8 vehicle. They can hurt, technically, just about, if you roll well, if you get lucky, they can hurt anything on the battlefield. Which means they're just dangerous enough to be a problem for your opponent, but they're 21 points. Which means that they're not actually difficult to take. And you can take, like I said, if you're taking a heavy weapons platoon, you need to take 2 heavy weapons before you can take the anti-tank weapons, which is what you really want the heavy weapons platoon for. And you don't want to take the light machine gun, so you may as well take 2 light mortars. Sorry, a medium machine gun. Medium machine gun's useless. Take the light mortars instead. You need to have 2, so you have 2 light mortars before you can take the anti-tank weapons. And you can just drop shots all over the place. You're going to miss most of them, but every now and again you're going to get hit, and it's going to be something your opponent has to deal with. Now, 2 inexperienced models, as soon as the enemy targets them, they're going down. They are absolutely going to disintegrate faster than leaves in the wind, but it's another target that your opponent has to deal with. And that's the value of them, I think, is giving your opponent a lot of things to shoot at, distracts them, spreads out their forces, and so it's not necessarily an offensive thing, it's a distraction thing, is what I'm getting at. The other way to use a light mortar is to take them veteran. In bolt action, you absolutely really have a lot of value in a veteran light mortar. I love them because what you can do is you can move them into open ground, right behind your infantry squads that's charging up, And you can start throwing shots out, and as soon as they start shooting, they're obviously going to move because you need to dial in on a target. But your enemy looks at the battlefield and goes, right, there's a light mortar there that's zeroing in on my unit, but there's also a big infantry squad that's a much bigger threat. So I'm going to shoot at the infantry squad. And then the next turn, they're like, well, that light mortar's still there, but this other thing's happening, and I've got this other thing to deal with. And when they eventually get to look at the veteran light mortar, they're like, well, there's 2 models there, and I need 5s to take them out. Which, in bolt action, is a bit of a, not necessarily a challenge, but you need to put a lot of firepower in to actually achieve that. It's achievable, but you have to do it deliberately. In Konflikt, taking out 2 veteran models is actually quite easy. And a lot of units can do that kind of without really thinking about it on their way past to do something else. And so doubling the points cost of a light mortar to make them veteran, but it's still only 40 points. That's not a lot. 20 points, however, for inexperienced is probably the way to go in Konflikt. In bolt action, I think there's a good argument to be made for veteran. In Konflikt, I think it's pretty much only inexperienced that's the useful, and it is as a disruptive distraction unit to make your opponent have to deal with them. They're easy to deal with, but you still have to deal with them. But like I said, medium heavy mortar, they can't move and shoot, which means they're slower. Yes, you can use a spotter, but the spotter's going to get taken out even easier than a light mortar will be. And you need to, and if you're spending more points here to get a bigger mortar, you need them to actually hit to do the damage. Whereas this, doesn't matter if they hit or not, they're still distracting your opponent. But the medium and heavy, you need to be hitting, and so you need to be actually... Can you roll a 6 first time every time? I certainly can't. I can barely roll a 4+ first time every time. I can barely roll a 2+ first time every time. So, for me, I don't think the mortars are worth it. Light mortar definitely is. Medium heavy, not so much. Flamethrower team. So the problem with the flamethrower team is not the flamethrower team itself, it's not the points, it's not the weapon, it's not any of the abilities here. The problem with the flamethrower team is that the only flamethrower slot in any of the platoons in the entire platoon structure of Konflikt 47 is in the engineers platoon. And the only thing of any real value in the engineers platoon is the flamethrower team. Remember that we can take a flamethrower... where is it? Oh, I've lost it. I've gotten lost. Yeah. Basic infantry squad. Flamethrower. If we want to take a flamethrower, we can take it in a bigger squad, which has a lot more wounds, because a lot more kind of ablative armor in terms of the other models in the squad. And you can just take it as a regular infantry choice. The flamethrower team... You have to take it in an engineer's platoon, which means you have to take another officer, which may be a good thing. But you also have to take 2 engineers infantry squads as well. So you now have an army with an assault platoon and an engineer's platoon. You have to take a minimum of 4 infantry squads just so you can finally eventually get to that flamethrower team. I don't think the flamethrower team is useful because of it. If you have some reason to take an engineer's platoon, and remember that the ghosts, this is something that not a lot of people are talking about. Ghost attack squad, engineers. You can give the ghost attack squad engineers. And the engineers do something very interesting. If you charge an enemy unit in cover, so normally a unit in cover would always get to fight first if they are charged. So if you charge a unit in cover, they get to fight first. If you have engineers, you fight at the same time, and that's to say that engineers have various weapons and equipment that means that they have a bit more of an advantage, so you're fighting simultaneously. Remember that the ghosts have fieldcraft and a 16-inch run, so they can run 16 inches through cover and fight at the same time as you. If they have a surging rift die, they have deadly 2, and you can have +1 pen for your NCO, so they're not that good in close combat. What you can do is take off their Shibori rifle, give them some machine guns, which is something that we sort of talked about earlier, and this becomes actually a relatively interesting assault squad. So you take off the Shibori rifle, give them engineers, hope for a surging rift die to get deadly too. You're getting 3 attacks each. No pen value except on the NCO. It's not as good as assault frames are. But with Fieldcraft and 16-inch run, they can move a heck of a lot quicker than assault frames can. Sorry, I was getting distracted. Yeah. Flamethrower teams, you need to take so much engineers to unlock them. They sort of aren't that great, especially when you can take a flamethrower in a normal infantry squad. Which means I'm probably going to take a flamethrower in a... If I take a normal infantry squad, it's either going to be a backline with light mortars or an assault frontline unit, cheap unit with a flamethrower. Probably the way it's going. So, artillery. Artillery, particularly howitzers, are better than mortars for one important reason. Direct fire. So all of these can shoot indirectly the same way mortars can, and they have all the same problems that mortars, like, no one's standing still for you to shoot at them, for you to hit with the indirect fire shots, and so they're not that useful. But the direct fire shots, now you're hitting on 3s, because you're going to be a stationary unit. And you can be on ambush, and you can sit there looking at an open part of the field, and you can really, really make it quite difficult for your opponent to move into that area. Because if you've got a heavy howitzer with a 4-inch blast template on ambush, waiting for you to move into that open ground, it is 135 points, so it's a lot. You can take a medium, which is still a 3-inch blast, which is still a lot of a blast marker for 85 points. And that 3-inch blast marker, that's going to hit multiple models. It's also going to give you +3 pen on each of those hits. So, yeah. Medium artillery, I think, is great. Heavy artillery, if you can spare those points for that upgrade, I think that can be worth it. The other option is anti-tank guns. And here's where things get interesting, because the Japanese don't have good anti-tank. They just don't. The Shibori cannons on all the vehicles are good anti-infantry, they're not good anti-tank weapons. Something like a Chi-Ha with the Shinhoto turrets, which I have here. So if I pop off the howitzer turret, I can throw on the Shinhoto turret. Well, now you've got a medium anti-tank gun. Or you can have a medium anti-tank gun as an artillery unit. And that's as good as it gets. And this is why the lunge mine is so important for the Japanese, because the medium anti-tank gun has +5 pen, and that's it. That's all you get. Whether it's on a Chi-Ha or whether it's an infantry, artillery team weapon, it's +5 on that. Now, +5 can kill most things, right? D6 +5 is 11 maximum, so you can penetrate any vehicle in the game at the moment, even the heavy walkers. You can potentially kill them, but it's just difficult to do. But leaving a medium anti-tank gun for 70 points on ambush, looking at an open part of the battlefield that you want your opponent to stay away from, that's tasty. That's a good, useful thing to do. And so the medium anti-tank gun and the medium or the heavy artillery, howitzers, I think there's value there. And the other good thing about them is that to take an artillery platoon, you have to take an officer. And an officer can be an assault frame, and then you have another assault frame officer. For anyone who's here at the first part of the stream when I talked about assault frame officers, yes, have a heavy weapons platoon so that you can have another officer in assault frame. Have an artillery platoon, because you only need 1 artillery piece, right? You just take your medium artillery, 85 points, and then 3 assault frames. That's 200 points, thereabouts, and you have an officer, an assault frame, and a big gun. Love it. After the artillery, we are now at the walkers. And I think at the moment, the Type 7 Sasori, which is the new one with the big tail and the claws, and the Type 6 Sasori, which is the older one, which doesn't have the claws, and can come with or without the tail, they're sort of the same, but slightly different. So the Type 6, the older one, you can either take it for 95 points with only the machine guns. So no cannon, no claws, 95 points. We often call this the angry potato, because it kind of looks like an angry potato. Particularly if you paint it in the brown camouflage scheme. But it's not that good at shooting. And with only legs, it's not that good at close combat either. But you can run around and stomp on things and cause havoc for 95 points. I'd honestly, for 95 points, rather have this, because this has +3 pen and it's little cannon. It can at least try. The next one is with an anti-tank gun, so that makes it 145 points. That's much nicer. That light anti-tank gun is +4 pen, so at least it's something. That'd be good against your armored infantry, and it will be a threat against vehicles. It's not super powerful, but it's potentially gonna hurt some vehicles. And then the next one up is to take it with the light Shiboro cannon, plus 80 points, which means that is 225 points, and I think that is a massive problem. The Shiboro cannon is effectively an auto cannon. It's an autocannon with a bonus, the crush bonus. The best it can ever do against a vehicle is +6, and that's if you get both shots to hit and you're using a rift ability, which very rarely happens. If essentially the only time that happens is if you charge into point blank range and get the +2 to hit from that. I have sat at long range using an officer with guts so that I can shoot again, and just hoping to get 2 hits out of a pair of hits, but it's just so expensive. 80 points, no, not just 80 points, that's +80 points to go from an anti-tank gun to the Shiboro cannon, because the light anti-tank gun's already 50 points, right? So because we've gone from 95 to 145, so that's 50. Yeah, that's a 50 point increase to get the light anti-tank gun, and so this is actually 130 points. The Shiboro cannon is not worth 130 points. It's maybe worth 60. This should be +10 at most. And I think for that reason, even though I love this model, I adore this model, I'm either going to take that as a light anti-tank gun, or I'm just not going to take the vehicle at all. Because taking it with Shiboro cannon is just not worth it. And when we look at the Type 7, the new one, the same thing happens there. So we go from 125 to 135 points, so it's 10 points more, and we get claws now. We get the 2 arms. We have to take the Shiboro cannon. There's no option to take a light anti-tank gun. There's no option to take the tail off completely. You have to take it with everything. It's the only way to do it. And 235 points just is too much. Again, if this was 70 points cheaper, it would be a very tempting unit. But for 130 points to take that Shiboro cannon, which you now have to take on this particular walker, it's just not worth it, unfortunately. I think if this was 70 points cheaper, it would be fantastic. It would be perfect. It would be exactly what you want. It's not good against vehicles, doesn't have to be, but it's going to be a really aggressive, like throwing that Shiboro cannon against infantry and then charging in with the claws. That's great. But as it stands at the moment, Shiboro cannon is just too expensive. So the Inago, I've seen someone run an Inago. It does have a medium anti-tank gun, which is the best ranged anti-tank weapon in the Japanese list. And you can make it a little bit cheaper by dropping it down to a rocket system, but I think the main focus here is that you're taking an anti-tank gun. But it's 300 points. And the reason why it's 300 points is because you have to take it veteran. And so this is a lot of firepower with a medium anti-tank gun and 2 autocannons. But it has to be veteran and it has to be a lot of points. And this is kind of a running theme in the walkers for the Japanese, is that they end up, by the time you get enough firepower to make them useful, they are now so many points that they're no longer useful. If you look at the Heuschrecker, which is essentially what the ENARGO is based on, you can kind of calculate the points out. Because it has machine guns that you can upgrade to light autocannons for a certain number of points, and it has the rocket system that you can change for the cannon for plus 20 points, and then there is a veteran upgrade for it, so you do get to 300 points if you take a Heuschrecker in the form that the ENARGO is. But the thing here is that the ENARGO doesn't have any of those options. You can't take it regular, you have to take it veteran. You can't take the autocannons as machine guns instead to save some points. The only thing you can do is take the one thing that you need it for off. And so at the moment, the ENARGO is not that good. I would like to see regular option, and I would like to see, and this would be actually a lot of fun, because every time I see someone building an ENARGO model, they give it a massive, great big sword, which is just fun. So what I would like to see is minus 50 points, so minus whatever it is to make it regular, and then minus 50 points to take off the medium anti-tank gun, and give it special rules for the sword. So maybe even say you get an extra arm attack instead of your legs attack, or maybe an extra arm attack as well as the legs attack, because you can have 4 attacks as a walker. So if you had 3 arm attacks, 1 for the left arm, 1 for the right arm, and then 1 for the sword, and then 1 for the legs, I'd love that. And if that was 200 points, that'd be great. But unfortunately, just like the Type 7 Sasori, you can only take it in the configuration it's really in, and it's just too many points for it. Looking at some of the other vehicles, all of these are now bolt-action vehicles with conflict upgrades. So we have a Chiha with a light Shiboru cannon, heavy Shiboru cannon, or you can downgrade it to a medium anti-tank gun, which is essentially a Shinhoto Chiha. You can take the Chinnu, which is essentially a Chiha up armored. So if you see the Chiha is armor 8 and the Chinnu is armor 9, that's the only difference between those two vehicles. It's 40 points more to take that. 40 points for the +1 armor to take it up to armor 9, and I think there is value in taking it at armor 9, because that now puts it in that medium category rather than a light category, especially as this gun is so expensive. Again, we see the same problem, because for a light tank, so the Chiha is a light tank, 215 points. Name another light tank that's over 200 points. Most medium tanks are 200 points. Like a normal Sherman, it's 195 points. Cromwell's 205 points. And this is a Chiha, this is armor 8. And the only reason why it has like this massive points cost is because we have the light Shiboru cannon. So it's only the light version of it still. It's still not the heavy. It's another 25 points to make it the heavy. But I think I've done this argument to death, because all of this relies on the Shiboru cannon being overpriced. It's an auto cannon. It's a nice gun. It's good. It's. I really like the rule and how it works. It would be fun to play. But for 80 points, I can't justify bringing it. And then we have transports. We did look at transports earlier. Truck is always good. Always good. Every bolt-action army should have a truck in it. And I think the same is true of the Japanese in Konflikt 47, especially if you're running assault frames. Because if you've got assault frames, they need to be up close. And chucking them in a truck is a good way of doing that. I think we also found, or was it the Hokai? Come on. Oh, it's not loading. We'll leave that for a minute to load. Whichever one from Bolt Action, which is a tracked armor 7 open-topped vehicle, it's a little bit better than a truck in terms of survivability, so you're more likely to get there. And it's got 24 transport capacity, which is great. But having a truck is 27 points. Super cheap. Super cheap. And you can still have the machine gun. Kurogane has... what's the transport? 4. So Kurogane with transport 4 is interesting because you can fit your officer, 3 models, and a lunge mine in that. You can take a 2-model officer team with a flamethrower or panzerstrike team, although we've decided we don't like those. Or you can take the Hokai or the truck with an officer and a squad. Have you loaded? Yes, you've loaded now. So was it 75 points for the Hokai with a medium machine gun? And there we go. That's the end of the list. I really like the Hokai. I've got loads of trucks. Definitely like trucks. I should at some point do a rundown of all of the bolt action vehicles. So if I bring in an armored platoon. So we've got all of these options that we can look at, because you can bring all of these in Konflikt 47, and some of them are rubbish and some of them are quite interesting. There's certain vehicles here that might actually be very useful in Konflikt 47, like this one, the armored truck for 45 points. 45 points for a truck with an autocannon. Whoops, wrong button. There's some options here, so maybe I'll do that in a separate live stream. But I do notice that we've run over 9 o'clock. We have reached the end of the list though, so I have achieved what I wanted to achieve here, which is to talk about everything on the list. If you want me to talk about the bolt action vehicles, do mention that in the comment below or in the chat. If you have any questions for me before I end the stream, post them now, because I will be ending the stream in a couple of moments. I have definitely focused on certain things that I want to focus on. I think the assault frames are definitely my number one at the moment. They might not stay there, because the battle frames with the Shiboru rifle, if I find it, oh, I'm way off. Here we go. Battle frames with Shiboru, I think, might actually be better than I have considered them, because I was thinking of just having one unit of them knocking around, but maybe having a second is useful too. 2 squads of assault frame, I think, is a minimum for me, but should they be 5 models or 10? And if they're going to be 5 models, should I bring 3 squads of 5? That would be useful. We're definitely not sure about the Shibito. I think I need to run a squad of 12, a full squad of 12, which I now have models of, to see what they're like. And the ghosts, I just don't think the ghosts fit my type of play. There's definitely some use for them, and I'm definitely sure that other players will be using them better than me. And I think that having one squad of them knocking around just to cause havoc can be useful. They're just not necessarily my thing. I think for the next game, I'm going to bring some assault frame, I'm going to bring some battle frame with Shiboru. I'm going to bring my Shibito, but it's going to be focused on assault frames in trucks, and maybe a Hokai if I can get one in time. Yes, many options. Well, I don't see any questions in the chat at the moment, so either it's not loading or everyone's gone to sleep. It is late, so that's perfectly acceptable. I've got some models that I need to paint, such as my Chiha and my Type 7 Sasori, if I ever get to use them in Konflikt. is another question, but certainly I want to get them painted because they're pretty cool models. And speaking of cool models, here's all of my currently painted Japanese for Konflikt 47 so far. I've got my Ashigaru, my Shibito, got my officers in various types, and my Sasori. I've got my Warlord Games battle frames and my Proxy battle frames. And you shall be seeing this squad tomorrow, because I've only just finished painting them and I made a video about building and painting them, and that is my video for tomorrow, so do tune in for that. But for now, thank you to everyone who has come past. Thank you to everyone who has made messages in the chat appear. And I think now we shall end the stream, so I hope you all have a lovely day. I'm ED-SKaR, always will be, and I'll see you next time.